Hey, Klemen, do you remember what your relationship with Markdown files was about a year ago?
There was no relationship with Markdown files. Really.
Okay. Okay. Then how did you, manage context when you were working with AI?
Back then, a year ago, I was not really thinking about the context in a structured way. I was too naive that it just is there. I think in Claude that it remembers stuff. I never thought of how much and in what way, and then it was just there. And skills, because back then I was not using Claude Code, so it was at a whole different level of how good I was using AI. That's why I basically had no relationship with Claude MD and structured context and memory a year ago.
How about you, Casey?
I did not know what a markdown file was a year ago. And I don't know if I might have been better a year ago. I'm trying to remember when you talked me into upgrading to paid Claude, and we're coming up on a year then from now. But prior to that, I would actually stress you out with how long my threads were, because I would just continue a really long thread where all of my context was prior to like having projects set up.
Because GPT would allow it. So that means it must remember everything that's been happening. And
It's a robot.
how did you deal with it's a robot? Indeed.
Why wouldn't it?
How did you deal with the moments of like inconsistency or not doing what you thought it would do?
I mean, I think I just was like, it's a stupid robot. I mean, I think I blamed the stupid robot.
All right.
That I don't think that's the question. You the answer you expected.
How about you, Clement?
Casey
On to
knocked you
someone
down.
else. On to someone else, please.
I tried to be patient with that robot and explain the context I thought it has, but obviously it didn't have. Because that's how I would do with like a junior person. Tell it, but then when you're for the third time providing the same context, you kind of get tired. And my thought was similar to Casey, that stupid robot is just why it cannot remember that context. I told you 3 times that this is how I do stuff. That's why you have all the Claude MD and whatnot, so you can define processes and so forth. But
so you mentioned same as like a junior person. What is different about dealing with a senior person?
Senior people, they remember stuff.
That's not the right question, I guess. Maybe it's not not senior junior, but someone who recently joined the company and someone who's been there for years. This is the difference. Not so much junior and not the level, but the continuation or
experience, right? Like,
Not even experience. I mean, you can have 50 years old dude who joins the company and would still have zero context and memory of how you do stuff in the company. So it's not only about the lifelong experience, but experience within that environment, that company, which is the context of how you do stuff or how you communicate, or everything that relates within that job description, title, company, um, which is a tenure of how much someone is there. Someone who's been there for 20 years or 5 years, you don't need to explain the basics. Where someone who just joined, no matter how experienced that person is, or if it's Claude, you need to give that context.
is it as simple as that when working with AI? Just think of like, human memories and like moving around. Like, if we're asking AI to do a process or command or use a skill, for the first time, why do we have the expectations that it's gonna just nail it? Like, the instructions are there. It's got all the context.
I don't know why we all expect it will automatically know everything and nail it. The same goes why we all expect it will automatically learn on its own. It just doesn't. We keep having those conversations with all kinds of agents we're building where we're asked, so if I have an agent for accounting, when it processes 100 invoices and log it, and I correct 10% of them, will the agent just learn from those corrections? No, it won't just automatically learn, because it's not how it works. If you define an agent and every invoice is processed from scratch, like you take a completely fresh computer and do one invoice, and then you throw it away, and then for the next invoice you take a new computer and you do that invoice, you process it, you log it, and then you throw it away. No matter how much you instruct and correct in that one invoice, it will not automatically be transferred to the new computer for the new invoice. So it probably going back to robot, we feel it should learn, but it doesn't on its own. It's not how it works. Which goes back to providing the right context. And if you want to get it improved, you need to say, okay, this is now the new SOP or whatever. So the next time you take the new computer, it has that new updated version of the agent, of the instructions, so it does the improved version on that new process.
I think part of the expectations too are like just the hype around AI. Like, people are being told, people who work at organizations are being told by their bosses, like, you have to use AI to do this faster, to do this better. Like, and then you see people or hear about people on LinkedIn, moving mountains with AI while they're, going on walks. Like, it's the same with, the same with a lot of stuff where you hear these stories and then people just want the quick fix. They don't want to put the work in to get there. And part of that's because I think a lot of people don't like, it's quite gatekeeping, but I do think people aren't always transparent. When people are like, look at this cool thing I did with Claude or whatever AI tool, they're not talking about how hard it was or how much work they put in to get to that output. So there's just this expectation people have that it's easier than it actually is.
Yeah. And I think it's, I mean, just like humans do, like there's probably a lot, like I like to assume positive intent, and like most of them don't even know you're doing it. I mean, we show you the 100th invoice
Mm-hmm.
and we don't talk about the first 99
Mm-hmm.
that we did. And I think a difference here is like we don't have to tell humans to learn about how to do an invoice
Mm-hmm.
so that they are better by the 100th invoice. You just naturally like, oh, all right, that happened last time. I don't want it to happen this time. So now this invoice, I'm going to do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And even there, we've been challenged with the documentation of that. And you see these key person risks all over the business that now just contains so much expertise for that thing that they've been doing that AI, needs that expertise. And this has come up recently for me as I've been restructuring the main brain. We talked about the Claude MD file a couple of weeks ago, because as we've brought more people in, I say, hey, just work with Marquis to get the show prep done and you'll be fine. And depending on which human it is and what show it is, usually doesn't work. Definitely never works out as if it were me doing that, right? But certainly there's varying levels of success on whatever, like all of these variables in play where there's been memory stored locally for me that when you build these, or if you're in Claude Desktop, like it's saving for you in your space. I can't just say, hey, Casey, like point to my memories when you process this, and then it's going to understand. And so building out the architecture, like from the Claude file, understanding that that's in play, like you can make choices, but this is also behind like the recursive improvement, challenge and opportunity that a lot of people are working towards. But like, how similar is this to like the history of HubSpot? Honestly, like when I first became a consultant towards the end of 23, and I was meeting other people that had only been in the HubSpot ecosystem for like 6 months to a year. The difference between how they viewed HubSpot and their memory of what HubSpot could do versus people who have been in the ecosystem for like 10 years, dramatically different, but also like you could tell, I'll say it was much more likely for the person that's 6 or 12 months old to know way more about the RevOps side of HubSpot versus the 10-year veteran that just grew up on Marketing Hub and they never had a need to focus on anything else. So that kind of training data is in all of the AI, models that we use. And a lot of the memory that has been built up for me, because it definitely leans towards like, oh, this didn't go the way that Chris wanted it to. So let me record this for next time. Very similar to the invoicing example that we remember when it goes wrong and we need to fix it versus when it goes right. And like, how do we scale that? And so working through that right now and having to remind it from the perspective, like just because it happened and just because it was a rule 6 months ago, doesn't mean it's the truth like anymore. And I say our most recent example is Breeze, like Breeze Assistant, which we still have folks not wanting to press that button because Bree's assistant is like, I don't know, like 2.5, 3 years old now, going back to ChatSpot. And it's only been, I'll say, trustworthy for like 3 months at this point. So while we don't, it's understandable why you would think that, you're missing out on so much value if you let that be the rule, right?
The challenge I have with those things is there's so many new stuff that you just have to prioritize how many times you try to play around with the same tool, being Breeze Assistant. It's still Breeze Assistant. Of course, it's way better and way different than it was 3 months, 6 months ago. But from the perspective of people who are still saying, yes, Breeze is not useful because I tried it 6 months ago and a year ago, I try to understand their position from that perspective, because there's just 50 other things that they also could try and should try and then follow on. But in the past, those improvements were way slower than they are now. So even though the tool being Breeze Assistant has the same name, it's far from being the same tool.
But I also just had a call this morning where I showed someone Breeze Assistant and they were like, I didn't even know that existed. So like that's part of it too. I mean, it seems so obvious to us because we live and breathe it, and like it's so clearly there. But yeah,
that's a part of this awareness loop that we've been trying to break from a content perspective for a while. It's like when the corpus of knowledge, my AI word of the month, corpus Klemen.
Has Rob heard that one?
We should ask him tomorrow.
Rob Jones, regular follower of AI Native Context. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. When the corpus of knowledge says Breeze bad, it's hard to even catch wind of the fact that it exists as a tool in the first place. Right. And as HubSpot and AI and just all of these systems move so fast, like I think the only thing you can control is really your willingness to understand, use the context of your problem that you're trying to solve or the workflow that you're in, and not overthink it, and use AI to develop ways to understand, should I try this right now? Right? Should I do this right now? Because I mean, this has always been an issue with workaround builds in HubSpot. Like the new update comes out, you don't need the workaround anymore. But you don't just get to turn it off and flip the switch into the new update either. But that's how that holds a lot of people back. How have you, as you've worked with just a team of 3, like the interesting part, Clement, is like one other person like makes us acutely aware of this challenge, that when we're building in a silo versus trying to collaborate with just one other person, you have a team of 3, at least before your holiday. How have you guys tried to deal with this, where the model is going to learn on its own, like Claude and all these groups at some point, they just built in memory because a lot of folks are not going to worry about it, but we expect the models to get better and the experiences to get better. So they started naturally remembering stuff and storing them. How have you guys tried to address this?
we now started. I mean, we built an internal AI machine, or however we call it, AI system which has access to everything from HubSpot, all of our emails, all of our calendars, LinkedIn, Stripe, everything. Doc is whatever we now use for signing documents. Everything that is relevant to Google Drive, where all the documents are then stored and so forth. And we are running it on a dedicated laptop, which is always on, like, or a server, it could be. So when we are now processing things for our sales, we are all using the same machine, basically. So whenever I make changes on instructions, I'm making them on that one machine, which we're then all using. So like we are all using the same computer. Basically, we share the system. That's how we're now trying to approach the, context memory is centralized for the company. Part of that is, the system can build a deck. So it's, the design is there. So when we'll change it, it will be there, not in my local memory or in my local skill, but it will change there so everyone has access to it. You can run it through a computer or for your own Claude within the repository, which is synced. But we now approach it in that way, so you have one place. Because if you keep having it locally, then yes, how you keep it up to date. We had in the past, we tried to have markdown file which we wanted to update once a week or once a month. It doesn't work. If it's one file, it's outdated the minute you exported it from Claude. Because in the meantime, I built something else, or I wrote a blog post, or we had a call or internal discussion about something which relates to that one context file, and it's outdated really the minute when you save it. But yeah, even within the team of 3, keeping the context up to date in a way that it's always current is a challenge.
I find even with like those context files, and honestly, even maybe more so with those context files, and to be clear, I'm referring to when I have a project in Claude, there's a little section on the right, I'm mirrored, so here, that have instructions and then context. I struggle to keep those updated, and then because things evolve and they just become outdated, and I have to make more of a conscious effort to keep those updated. The most, like, the one I have the best set up is I have a project for my business where I talk about like what does my business look like, where and Chris might know better than anyone, I am constantly evolving my thoughts on what my business looks like, and
As one should in this
as
moment.
one but I mean I spend a lot of time shifting, and so that context gets very outdated very quickly because I change my offerings all the time.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts about moving to Claude Code in that kind of architecture is keeping up project files in these spaces, which Claude Cowork, kind of can solve for now. They're still in the process, or it wasn't too long ago that they started combining like the concept of projects in that way. And so it sounds like, Klemen, you guys don't necessarily differentiate between let's say memory and like other forms of context.
Yes, I guess. I mean, to me, as naive as I am about AI and with my limited developers' skills, to me, it's the same. Context or memory is what I need to tell Claude to know so I can steer it in the direction that I want. What I would need to give to someone, a coworker, how I want to do stuff. So it's kind of semantics more than a real different thing.
So how are you like, let's say how are you helping with avoid the experience of we just did it like that last time, now I'm having to tell you again? I don't want to have to do that. Keep track.
Good question. I know how we're exactly solving that. As part of the instructions or configurations, so part of the system is the settings, where, for example, for the follow-ups, when the system decides I should follow up, I update the instructions what is now the theme or the angle for the follow-ups. Like for the next 3 weeks, I will always ask you, are you coming to Unbound? This is the opening line of my follow-up to anyone in the next 3 weeks. And I just added that in the memory or context, whatever, of the system. So whenever it helps me, it drafts an email, it starts with, hey, I'll be at Unbound. See you there. So this is at a system level of how we update. At the company contact account, whatever level, we have part of the, what's the best word? Current state, which is recomputed every time something happens. Like whenever I send an email, it recomputes the new status, the new state of the art about that company relationship. Right. If I send a LinkedIn DM, it recomputes. If I receive an email, it recomputes. If I schedule a call, if it recomputes. So we're, of course, spending a lot of AI tokens for that, but without that, AI will be always behind the context and in the memory of what happened. Mm-hmm. The challenging part, in a way, that I feel, which is how long it takes for AI to recompute. When you get an email, I need to wait 20 minutes to 30 minutes to just the full process to recompute everything, and then I have a draft response to that email, where if I would see it in directly in the inbox, I would just type a response. But I'm trying not to do that, so that it brings all the context, and every time when it drafts the email, we control what goes in the context for drafting that email. Otherwise, you end up, as you said, Casey, you just hope the full thread is still remembered somewhere. Mm-hmm. But in the design of a system, we build it in a way that we control and we prepare always the full context. So we always make sure we pull all the raw emails from HubSpot, not just a summary of it, so that you can have the full context. And AI has the full context and all the context as of now. And even if something happens in between, and if I would, in the meantime, when it's computing, I would send a new email, it would just recompute on the fly because something new happened. It wouldn't draft an email as I just received an email.
That's very interesting. You have built memory out. Like, you're basically not relying on memory in these cases where you're recomputing. So I think from our perspective, and hello, Jeremy. Thanks for joining us. Speaking of somebody who's memorable. Yeah, I think in this token budget management world, like the concept of like you have an hour-long transcript, like most are trying to avoid like rerunning that transcript lots of times. So whether it's memory or any form of context where we've relied on like how we remember events, like very rare that we remember like every minute of the conversation, but we remember the memorable moments. And a lot of times that context will carry you. But the moment you're on 8 calls a day, the chances that you remember exactly when you're what you need to remember definitely low from a human only perspective. But when you get AI involved, trying to find these triggers, usually I'm kind of jealous of Klemen's situation where you don't have to worry about this part of the engineering, but processing that all day, and then when you're saying how did we do today, like making sure context lines aren't being misassigned and misaligned, so that when we try to remember tomorrow what happened yesterday, like it's always going to be assigned to the right context spaces, for lack of a better word. And it also sounds like you're just using a bunch of your CRM super user skills, like Klemen, to do the right amount of prep and instruction up front to help with this.
In my experience, really with using AI continuously to support your sales processes, as soon as you start doing things in parallel, like 50% of your work through AI and 50% manually, you will struggle a lot in your mind that to keep using AI. If it and the moment you start struggling to use AI is when AI has lack or lag of the context, which means I need to remember the same context in my mind. And if I already have that, and if I need to tell Claude how to write the email draft that I would with my context need anyway to rewrite and reword, in the same time I would already draft an email and send it. So if you really want to use AI in a long run, not as a shiny demo and then make a screenshot of, hey, I have my calendar booked with 50 meetings a day, LinkedIn post, you need to make sure that context is up to date. If there is a meeting that happened yesterday, not part of the context with which AI is writing the next draft, that draft will just not be good. There's no way it can be.
Yeah, that's why it helps when you can think about it. All of this, like AI native matters as a phrase, like for this reason. Like, it's not that you prioritize the usage of AI, it's just like it becomes an option or a part of every process, wherever the gaps would have been that humans can't think in scale or complexities and this kind of stuff. Um, uh, and the fact that it's transformation and not optimization. Like, this is exactly why you cannot. It's really, I mean, based on what you just described, this is why it's impossible, really, which can be annoying at times. We were talking about this on the morning show today about how Breeze being able to do PowerPoints now, like, allow for that middle frustrating moment to be solved for when we create with AI and then can't fix it ourselves because we don't know how, or it's an HTML file, it's not editable, and now you can download it as a PowerPoint, and now it's like, hey, easy to fix, right? So most systems are not designed to support that kind of messy middle. And often when they do support it, like in the case of PowerPoints, like, what else are you going to have to fix because you needed to export it as a PowerPoint and instead of just creating like a web page. So yeah, this all or nothing approach, there's no way around it, in my opinion. Like, I've always been the guy that people said, well, we can't boil the ocean.
I think it's not necessarily black and white or white, like all or nothing, but you need to find a way for a smooth handoff from AI to a human to do that last mile. Experience we had, like for Dex, I think is a good thing. So initially we build it in a way that you have, like, a deck format on a website where you with Claude give instructions, and then you have the slides, and then you can edit them. It's clickable, it's editable. But then I wanted to do bullet points instead of numbers. So do I really want to go to Claude and ask to change the bullet points into numbers and then wait for 5 minutes to have that, where I know it's one click away on Google Slides? I don't have that patience of 5 minutes to just make one edit. So then we start thinking, okay, do we want to reproduce Google Slides on our own, or we find a way how you vibe code the slides? And now what we do is you start doing slides, vibe coding them as Google Slides, and when you're fine with them, because you can then small changes I do directly in Google Slides. If there are some major changes, I do it with Claude. So we work on the same file, and then when it's done, I save the PDF version of it and put it to the system. So in the system, it's view only, where I have a reference to Google Slides. But in that way, I can work with AI on the slides. And when I need small changes, I just use Google Slides functionalities, so we don't need to reproduce that. That's how I now feel you can do work with AI and use the tools. You don't need to rebuild CRM or Google Slides or whatever. It's that fundamental systems which are already there.
Casey's thinking hard.
I mean, I do think that's the ideal. I mean, that would be the ideal state. That doesn't exist now, right? Like, I'm not missing something.
Which part?
Like, is there a way for me to vibe code in Google Slides? I don't. There is. Oh, okay. So
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Right
Most
now, how
of-
I'm doing it is I'm getting a PDF, a .ppxtx, whatever that file is, uploading it to Google Slides, and then just replacing it every time there's a vibe coded version, which, as you're mentioning, Klemen, overwrites any manual changes I might have made. I'm not
Yep.
doing that.
Well, if you'd like to, we'll help you out with that.
Come back next week where
right,
Casey
sir.
learns.
Updating the service key. At least it would be my approach. Some might say MCP. I have better experience. I have better experiences with straight API keys that get straight to the point. But I think overall, to close on our topic, like it takes, this is where like the small teams like us, we have the time to say, I don't want to do it like that. I want to do it like this, work the process, and then build the process and document the process. Teams in orgs that are trying to make these changes, they probably don't have access to even do that. And that's where Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini like has memory systems setting up so that and again, just like you were serving a boss that's like, oh, I don't like it like that. Right? You sent me a long email. Give me 4 bullet points. Right? Like that's not documented anywhere. And you would be like, it might be risky to document that anywhere that anybody else could see. So you store it in memory and say, all right, whenever I email Klemen, I know he doesn't want to read a book in his email. I'm going to just do these 4 bullet points. Right? These systems of memory are starting to, or they've been for a minute, like trying to serve those moments. But they do it much better and much faster when you tell them, again, just like humans, like, remember that. Like, remember this part, please. Like, this is the part I want you to remember. And
just last thought, there are different levels or layers of memory where one is what are your personal preferences. Even if you're in a team of 30 reps, you have your own preferences, which is easy to store in your local environment in Cloud MDs, where the other part is how you as a company position and how you what phrases you use in proposals, in index and so forth, which should be centralized. Otherwise it will get messy. If everyone has access to that core memory that is shared among the team, you don't want everyone to have added access. There should be a process how you make changes. Otherwise it will be so inconsistent and contradictory at the end that they'll just mess it up.
Yeah, I think that's why most will not be as lucky as Klemen is in terms of being able to just centralize memory and have everybody okay with it. Because everybody does have preferences. Not all of those are easily shared. And like from a security perspective, personal perspectives, folks won't want it, but they'll want that. I don't want to have to tell you this again experience, but I don't necessarily want my whole team to know about it, but it helps me do my job like the way that people are expecting of me. It's going to be interesting to see how this all rolls out when systems like HubSpot and now like Claude just is working on the Slack-like experiences as teams
Mhm.
come together inside of these systems. This is going to be an interesting spot to watch.
Yeah.
And watch out for if you're wondering why somebody shared that their winning prompt with you and it did not win anything when you tried it.
Win anything.
Oftentimes this is at the heart of that challenge. So I don't think this will be the last time we talk about it. But we're going to keep talking about AI native context from this perspective of just like every day trying to get work done and challenges you might run into on the way. So good to have you back, Klemen. Always a pleasure, Casey. We'll see everybody next time.
In a week. Take care.